Thank you, everybody, for coming to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page. If you could do me a quick favor, see that little subscribe button at the bottom of your screen? Go ahead, click that subscribe button. Really does help our channel grow, our audience grow, and I really do appreciate it more than you know. So click that subscribe button. Appreciate your support. Now, here's the video that you came here for. To the lows of what is the ACC. The once proud ACC. It used to be a basketball conference and not a basketball conference anymore. It used to have powers at the top in football. Not so much. We'll get to Georgia Tech in a minute, Clemson in a minute, but we got to start with the University of Miami, baby. It's all about the U, at least until November, when they always fall apart. They go to SMU as a double-digit favorite, and they lose in overtime to the SMU Mustangs. Final score 26-20. You want to give SMU credit, but to me, the story is about Miami. Okay, so first of all, a couple things is one, Miami, I will say this, did not deserve to win. SMU was the better team. They did get a tiny little bit of bad luck, though. I don't know how many people were watching this because this happened right as the Vandy-Texas game was going final. Vandy trying to recover that onside kick. They make that big rally late. But in the Miami game, right? So Miami is up late in the fourth quarter, 20-17. SMU has the ball. This was a wild play. I thought, by the way, I don't want to be the guy that every single week comes on and complains about college football officiating, but it was I just saw bad play after bad play after bad play after bad play all day long, okay? This was bad. Miami forces a 4th and long. I think it was a 4th and 9 or so. If they get the stop, they win the game up 20-17 late in the fourth quarter. It was interesting because on the broadcast, the announcer basically said, 4th and 9. I wonder if Miami uses a timeout to set their defense. And in my head, I'm like, why would you use a timeout? All you're going to do is give them time because SMU is out of timeouts. All you're going to do is give them time to set up the perfect play. Well, guess what happens? Right as the ball is snapped, we get a whistle. Mario Cristobal does call the timeout. Unfortunately for him, and unfortunately for Miami, maybe their entire season hinged on that play because one of his defensive ends was rushing, did not hear the whistle, popped Kevin Jennings, got a 15-yard unnecessary roughness penalty, which ultimately set up the game-tying field goal and the game loser in overtime, okay? And so I did think it was a little bit of a bad break, but a couple things. One, bad timing on Mario Cristobal's part. I'm not going to blame the player because the player clearly didn't hear the whistle. The announcers were like, well, I mean, shouldn't he have seen his other teammate holding up? It's like, dude, he's running a million miles an hour at the quarterback, but Cristobal did not have to wait until literally the second the ball was being snapped to call a timeout. I thought, by the way, the refs should have picked up the flag. I think it's tough to blame the player in that situation, but some of it also comes down to Cristobal calling the timeout right as the ball is snapped. And I think more importantly, part of it is Miami allowing SMU to be in this game when Miami is a double-digit favorite. And I think even as importantly as that, you still could have gotten the stop in regulation. And then in overtime, Carson Beck didn't have to throw the interception. You didn't have to give it. The call was terrible. And if they don't make that call, or if they get the stop, the game is over. Conversely, that's not necessarily the sole reason that they lost the game. They had plenty of chances to win after. Bottom line is, though, none of it matters because Miami now, as we sit at the 3/4 poll point of the season, Miami is 6-2, and Miami is very much, I think, on the outside looking in of the college football playoff picture. And I think what's kind of shocking to me is just how bad Mario Cristobal is late in the year. He's another guy I've largely defended. I liked him. And I even go back to the Oregon years. I mean, Oregon, let me just say it. I'm an idiot because I just thought Oregon had some bad luck, right? Get into November. They lost some late games. 2019, if you remember, that was the year they had Justin Herbert. They go to Arizona State on a Saturday night with some young quarterback named Jaden Daniels that nobody's heard of. He ends up leading them to a win over Oregon. 2021, Oregon also entered November with a chance to make the playoff. And I just thought it was bad luck. Oregon's cursed, whatever. No, the only thing that's cursed is whoever has Mario Cristobal on the sidelines. And I think with Cristobal, we are at a very interesting point because I think two things can be true. There is no doubt that he has elevated the program from where it was to where it is now, almost like what we talked about with Matt Rule, right? Matt Rule, we can criticize the top 25 record, but can we not argue that the program is in a much better place than when he took over? But I think, especially at Miami, I think it's fair to ask, like, are they ever going to get over the hump with Mario Cristobal? Because I kind of sort of think the answer we might already know the answer to. Okay, so I saw some shocking stats. Okay, so last year, if you remember, Miami goes into November undefeated. That was the Cam Ward year, trending towards the number one pick, whatever. They lose at Georgia Tech, and then the final day of the season, they lose at Syracuse to get eliminated from the ACC championship game. That was the famous Fran Brown, Clemson needs to thank me for sending them to the ACC championship game. The only reason Clemson was in the ACC championship game with a chance to go to the playoff was because Miami lost on the final day of the season. But I think when you go back to last year, you could still argue it's year 3, you're still building, you're whatever. Well, this is the year. There's no excuses. This is year 4. You got your guys, multiple top 10 recruiting classes, multiple great portal classes. You fix the defense. You hire a new defensive coordinator, and it's much the same. I'll tell you this, couple stats jump out to me. The first one, Matt, you could pop up the tweet that I put out earlier in the day on Saturday because this kind of sets the tone. Miami, last 2 regular seasons have 4 total losses. All 4 are with Miami in the top 10 and their opponent unranked. Now, some of those teams are good. Louisville is good this year. Georgia Tech was good last year. SMU was good this year, by the way. It doesn't change the fact that when you're Miami, these are games you have to win. At some point, you have to beat half-decent teams in November if you actually want to be in the playoff. And I think the Justin Rowland tweet, which you can now pop up, Matt, this one was shocking to me. So Justin Rowland covers Kentucky for Rivals, but does a great job on college football. He tweeted out Mario Cristobal now 3-10 in November games as Miami head coach. Now, again, year 1, it was a total rebuild. Year 2, you're still trying to figure things out. But last year, you go 2-2. Now you're 0-1. And I think it is fair to say, I think Miami is at a crossroads kind of inflection point as a program. Listen, this isn't the same as Brian Kelly at LSU. Okay, I'm not going to say it is. And I don't think the team's quit on him. I just think they don't play well at the worst possible time. But what I do think is we are at kind of an interesting inflection point, right? Brian Kelly, James Franklin, those kinds of guys, they were, the reason that they got fired, and Mario Cristobal is not getting fired. That's not what I'm saying. So if somebody wants to get in the car, he's not getting fired. And I'm not saying he even should be fired. But it got to the point this year for LSU and Brian Kelly, this year for James Franklin, it was kind of the year because you had been given resources, given money, given NIL, and it was like all the chips are in the middle. At some point, you have to win at the highest level. We are giving you everything you need to succeed at the highest level, okay? And so why I think that's relevant to Mario Cristobal in Miami is, yes, there is no doubt he has elevated this program. I'm not saying that he hasn't. What I am saying, though, is, for 4 years, you've been given everything that you need to compete at the highest level. The whole reason you're at Miami is because the program basically on national TV was embarrassed. Kirk Herbstreit said they're not serious about winning there, so they go pay Mario Cristobal a bunch of money, and then they give him everything that he needs to succeed. Well, now it's year 4. Now you've spent a ton of money on this roster, and it's like, I just think it's an interesting point for Mario Cristobal of, can he go into the portal this offseason and get the guys that he needs? Can he go to his boosters this offseason and say, hey, I need a couple more this and that so we can lock in the quarterback that we want or lock in the safety that we want or whatever? I just think that it's an interesting point, right? I think every job's a little bit different. I think every situation's a little bit different where, again, not on the hot seat, not saying that. But what I am saying is if I'm the dude that's given $250,000 or $1 million or $2 million to NIL and Mario Cristobal comes back to me, I say, why? So you can lose to some crappy team in November when I just gave you $1 million last year or the year before? So I just think it's an interesting point for the program. And I will say, listen, again, I've kind of made the point on Cristobal. I think the 3-10 in November stat is fascinating. And I'll also say this, is that I know what some of you will say, well, they're 6-2. They could still, Matt says something to the effect of, Cristobal has lost 6 times as a double-digit favorite at Miami, 2 in the last 3 games. Well, there you go. I think the other thing too is like the Louisville loss at home. I'm sorry. I know Louisville's good. Jeff Brom's a hot candidate, but that's at home. That was bad. Really quickly on Miami, I think the other tough part is because I know what people say is like, well, I mean, they could still finish 10-2. They could get to the ACC championship game. Have you seen the top of the ACC standings? 6 teams right now have 0 or 1 losses in league play. Miami has 2. Of the 6 teams that have 0 or 1 losses, Miami has already lost to 2 of them, Louisville and also, of course, SMU on Saturday. And so I just bring it up because, like, you're going to have to, like, even if you went out, and with Miami, who the heck knows with Mario Cristobal, but even if you went out, the number of teams that you're going to have to jump and the number of teams that that are going to have to lose multiple games for you to get there, I don't think you can. And so you could say, well, he could still win the ACC. Yeah. I don't know that he can get there, though. And if he can't get there, I don't think 10-2 does it, not with this schedule. Now, I will say, this is an interesting scheduling thing. They do have the win over Notre Dame. Notre Dame can only finish at 10-2, and at this point feels very likely that they'll finish at 10-2. And so that is one thing I don't know that right now I have a strong opinion on. I actually just put it out on my Twitter feed at Aaron_Torres of, like, do we think that Notre Dame has to get in? Or do we think Miami has to get in over Notre Dame? Like, if both teams finish 10-2, Miami would have the head-to-head win. I'm generally if you have the head-to-head win, you need to be in. But, oh, by the way, Notre Dame clearly by the end of the year will be the better football team. So it's just an interesting thing to talk about. Miami has the head-to-head win over Notre Dame. Notre Dame conversely has the head-to-head win over USC, which could matter, later on in the year. But SMU beating Miami, I just think that stat 3-10 in November as head coach, that ain't going to get the job done. I like Mario Cristobal, but that is pretty bad.